we're starting with WWE, and from the moment CM Punk returned, Seth Rollins made it clear he's no fan of the Best in the World, and a match between the two seems inevitable. Rollins has called out Punk at WWE live events and said he hates that Punk spent years burying WWE. But is there another reason for all of this animosity? Speaking on Jackie Redmond's NHL show, Punk was asked why Rollins has such a disdain for him and had his own ideas why. He said, well, I think it's because I've walked a similar path to his, but I've also walked paths he hasn't ventured into. We're probably too similar, honestly. That's the biggest factor. We share a lot in common. However, the key difference is that I can discuss my career without needing to bring him into the conversation, whereas he often can't discuss his own journey without referencing me. I get where he's coming from, I truly do. I think he's always felt like the younger sibling in this rivalry. I've never consciously treated him as such, I've always viewed him as a peer. But sometimes, certain people are just unattainable, and he seems to hold that resentment. He genuinely dislikes me. It's akin to the rivalry between the Colorado Avalanche and the Detroit Red Wings. For anyone unaware, the reference to the Colorado Avalanche and Red Wings harkens back to the intense blood feud that characterized their battles in the 90s and early 2000s. On social media, fans loved Punk's comments about Rollins, with some saying he little brothered the reigning World Heavyweight Champion, while one fan simply said, "ouch," in response to Punk. Another fan said that Punk has just been destroying Rollins on the mic, while one had high expectations and suggested that this will be a better program than Punk's AEW work with MJF. Punk didn't just talk about Rollins during the NHL show, as he also spoke about a hockey player, Paul Bissonnette, who used a people's elbow on the mascot of the Seattle Kraken very recently. Punk knows all about working with the Great One and wasn't impressed, as he gave Bissonnette's version a 4 out of 10, possibly a reference to Bret Hart's famous scale. Bissonnette, aka Biz Nasty, didn't take Punk's rating lightly and threw out a friendly challenge as he threatened to put on his man thong and knee pads and enter the Royal Rumble to GTS Punk. Biz Nasty won't be in the men's Rumble match, but CM Punk will, and as a favorite in the bout, it may be a matter of time before Punk gets his inevitable match with Rollins at WrestleMania 40. For years, Bobby Lashley was a leading figure in the Hurt business, but right now, the Almighty has a new faction which consists of himself, Angelo Dawkins, and Montez Ford. WWE once had the idea of adding Odyssey Jones to the group, though those plans never materialized, but now it appears Lashley and his group have a new name. In a recent report from WrestleVotes, it's been revealed that the planned moniker for this formidable faction is The Pride, and the plan had been for the name to be confirmed last week. At the 11th hour and for undisclosed reason, those plans were scrapped, and WrestleVotes added that the group's trajectory may be subject to alteration, but The Pride remains the planned name. The group will add an extra layer of intrigue to the formidable faction, and though the delay in the announcement and potential creative shifts keep fans guessing, fans are excited to see what's next. The Street Profits' transformation towards the dark side alongside Bobby Lashley is a storyline that continues to captivate, though it appears they'll be faces against Karrion Kross and the AOP. But what do you think of this news? Do you like The Pride as a name, or do you have a better idea in mind? Let us know in the comments section below. In WWE, Matt Riddle tried to get a match with Brock Lesnar and would take any opportunity to speak about the match in interviews, which didn't sit right with the Beast incarnate. Riddle rubbed Brock Lesnar the wrong way by publicly politicking for a match, and things would come to a head at the 2020 Royal Rumble event. During a virtual autograph signing, Riddle recalled his interaction with Lesnar at the event and how Lesnar made it crystal clear that a match with the then NXT superstar wasn't happening. He said, "First time I met him, I had talked a lot of trash, so I had it coming. I thought it was all in good spirit and good fun, plus I was on the indies, never thought I'd even get signed. So I'm at Royal Rumble, my first time on the main roster, I'm super stoked, and I see Brock Lesnar and he walks next to me and I'm like, what's up, dude? Then all of a sudden, his security guard, who I'm good friends with now, came up behind us and goes, 'You need help with this?' And I'm like, 'What?' And Brock grabs me by the neck, and he didn't like ragdoll me, but he grabbed me by the neck and proceeded to tell me we would never work together and keep my fucking mouth shut." Riddle was then told to stop tweeting at main roster talent like that while he was in NXT because there were no such plans for a match, and Lesnar didn't like it. Riddle's time in WWE clearly got off to a rocky start, and after his Lesnar dreams were crushed, he'd try and get a match with Goldberg by throwing some shade at the Hall of Famer. That match didn't happen either, but Riddle and Goldberg would grow closer during a flight to a Saudi Arabia event, with Riddle stating that they spent quality time together. We'll keep our eye on this story and so many more about Matt Riddle here at Slat Rock Wrestling. You never know what'll happen next at this point. During the signing, Riddle was asked about plans that didn't pan out and said that at one point he was scheduled to win the Men's Royal Rumble match in 2022. Those plans changed thanks to Lesnar, who simply walked in and said he'd be winning the match instead, but at least that's the story that Matt Riddle is sharing. When Ringside News reached out to sources in WWE, the claim was firmly debunked, and it was said there was never a plan for Riddle to win the 2022 match. That match will live on in infamy, as the backstage chaos with Shane McMahon led to the prodigal son being fired, and the result of Lesnar winning left many fans unsatisfied. Nevertheless, the win would set the table for Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and while some fans probably wanted Riddle to win at the time, such a victory was never in the cards. Earlier this week, it was reported that MVP once knocked out Chris Jericho during one of Y2J's Rock and Rager wrestling cruises, which isn't the only time the pair have tussled. The duo infamously had an altercation in a hotel years later, and while Jericho has neither confirmed nor denied the rumors, MVP has seemingly weighed in. Given the allegations against Jericho, many fans were happy to hear that MVP reportedly got the better of him on the cruise, and on Twitter, MVP asked, "Heard any good rumors lately?" MVP also included a smirking emoji and one saluting as well, and it certainly seems that he did something for others as he knocked out Chris Jericho. This did not mark his 100% confirmation, but MVP also did not dismiss the idea that he knocked Chris Jericho out, and if anything, those emojis gave fans the idea that the cruise story is accurate. Jericho was on this week's Dynamite, with his theme playing throughout his segment, which some have seen as AEW's attempt to drown out any boos or negative reactions from fans. As for MVP, he hasn't wrestled in a considerable amount of time as he's more focused on managing Omos, but it's clear that the former US champion can still throw hands when prompted. Now, Jeff Hardy has had a unique time in AEW thus far, as while the DUI charges against him were dropped, Jeff hasn't exactly been treated as a massive star. He and Matt are rarely on Dynamite, which many fans have taken issue with considering the pair's legendary status, and this week, Jeff had some choice words about their booking. Prior to this week's Dynamite, Jeff made it clear to fans not to expect himself or Matt on the show, saying that the pair are stuck in the dimension of AEW Rampage. Hardy's use of "stuck" led many to believe that he and Matt are unhappy in the company, and now Jeff has deleted the post, presumably due to the negative reaction. This isn't the first time that the pair's booking has come up, as on a December episode of his podcast, Matt said that he's been creatively frustrated for months with AEW's lack of plans for the pair. The Hardys may be wrestling's greatest tag team, but AEW sure isn't treating them like it, and are the brothers right to call out AEW this way? Give your take in the comments. It was in September that Jade Cargill signed with WWE, and while she'd make a handful of appearances shortly after, it's been months since fans have seen her. Recently, Jade resurfaced on social media in clips of her training with Natalya at the Heart Dungeon 2.0, and the Canadian veteran has high hopes for the former AEW TBS champion. Speaking with TMZ, Natalya gushed about Cargill's training session and said she's going to be awesome, and that 2024 will be a huge year for her, and mentioned the Royal Rumble. Natalya may have said too much, as according to sources, an idea being strongly considered is for Cargill's debut to come in the upcoming Women's Rumble match, about that she'd win. Not only would she win, but the idea is for Cargill to eliminate 10 women, breaking the record for the most eliminations in a single Women's Rumble match, and go on to compete at WrestleMania. While Triple H has said that WWE would not rush Cargill, some notable names backstage believe WWE need to do something with her soon, or risk her not being used, becoming a joke among fans. Jade Cargill's been busy training, both with Natalya and at the Performance Center, and will we finally see her in-ring debut in 2 weeks from now? Time will tell. Cargill, unsurprisingly, wasn't at this week's homecoming edition of AEW Dynamite, but those working the show backstage will have noticed an unexpected name from the world of WWE. At the Dynamite homecoming show, Elijah Burke was at the event, and on Twitter shared photos with Brian Cage, Eddie Kingston, and Swerve Strickland, just to name a few. In addition to WWE, Burke is known for his time as the Pope D'Angelo Dinero in TNA, and it's clear that he had a blast at the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. It was a few months back that Ric Flair was brought into AEW as a special gift for Sting, 2 years or so after AEW initially intended to bring in the Nature Boy. Since arriving, Flair hasn't shied away from getting physical, which has led some fans to fear that a match could happen, which would likely be a train wreck if his 2022 bout is anything to go by. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select recently reported on Flair and the possibility of one more match from the Nature Boy and said, "It should go without saying, but in case you're wondering, we're told Ric Flair hasn't been considered for any in-ring performing, but has been actively pushing to do more physical spots." On this week's Dynamite, Flair was again getting active as he busted out some chops and a poke to the eye, but for now at least, there's no plans for a match from the Nature Boy. Flair has said in the past that he didn't enjoy his last match in July 2022, but also doesn't plan on wrestling again. And what do you make of all this? Let us know down below. Recently, CJ Perry shared that she had to undergo surgery to save her finger from a severe infection, and since then, the AEW manager has given consistent updates on her condition. Despite her condition, Perry is keeping a close eye on AEW programming, but she won't be appearing in person for the foreseeable future. On Twitter, Perry reacted to a video of Hook and Samoa Joe, saying she'd love either man as a new client, but only when she heals up and returns to AEW television. In a separate post, Perry gave an in-character message saying her infection must be karma for betraying Andrade at World's End and giving El Idolo a proper send-off. Perry will possibly have a second surgery next week, but said it was worth the risk for her clients, and we're wishing her the very best at this unfortunate time. In 2022, Steph DeLander was cut from WWE NXT, ending her time as Persia Pirotta, but she has since become a huge name on the independents, thanks in part to her work with Matt Cardona. In an appearance on the Insight podcast this week, DeLander was asked about a WWE return and said that it's an end goal, but not one she's rushing to. DeLander hopes to catch the attention of WWE eventually, but for now, her focus is on her incredibly over act, as she and Cardona have big plans for 2024, whether they're in WWE or not. Now, the Royal Rumble matches always feature a surprise or two, and while Jade Cargill could be in this year's women's match, one name fans shouldn't expect is Gail Kim. While Kim is officially retired, she made a return to action as part of Impact 1000 in September, but that doesn't mean a Women's Rumble appearance is in the works. When asked on Ring the Bell, Kim laughed off the idea that WWE would ask, but said it's okay, and touted the impressive work Scott D'Amore has been doing as TNA's leader with the women. Kim had an interesting time in WWE, and after returning in 2008, infamously left the promotion by eliminating herself from a Battle Royal in 2011, and promptly returning to TNA. With that in mind, WWE will likely not be rushing to bring Gail Kim back, but as far as the Impact Hall of Famer and 7-time Knockouts champ is concerned, that's absolutely fine. In WWE right now, few superstars are more popular than LA Knight, who often gets the loudest reactions at SmackDown, but just how long can this wave of momentum last? Some feel that Knight's popularity peaked at November in Crown Jewel, and when speaking to the Insight podcast, Knight anticipated the reactions will die down at some point, saying, "I think every week I'm always looking at it like, man, it's gonna slide off at some point, and you know what? When it does, I'm just gonna roll with it, and I'm gonna get even better from that point. Because at that point, I'm out, and you're all getting jabbed. But no, I don't know, at this point, it's just been growing and growing. And I remember the very first time, I think we talked about it last time, it was in DC in March. And from there, it was like, oh, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. And then it was like more and more. And that wasn't necessarily the reaction I was looking for, because especially coming out of the Bray Wyatt thing, it's like, all right, let me keep getting heat. Let me keep getting heat. Knight's reactions may die down one day, but for now, the megastar is riding high, and we'll have to see what 2024 brings Knight and whether championship gold is in his future. This week, a tweet from the USA Network that made no reference to AEW led to an outburst from Tony Khan, who took aim at WWE booking Jinder Mahal in a World Heavyweight title match. This, ironically, led to fans leaping to Mahal's defense, with many taking issue with the boss of a wrestling company taking aim at a wrestler, and there's been a lot said about Khan's attitude. One fan sarcastically commented that for all the criticism that Khan only buys talent and doesn't make stars, he just made Jinder Mahal the biggest star in wrestling, which caught some attention. On Twitter, fans noticed that Randy Orton himself liked this tweet, as despite the fact that Jinder took the WWE title from Orton in 2017, the Vipers found Khan's outburst very funny. Jinder Mahal has been the talk of the wrestling world for the past few days thanks to AEW's president, but has Mahal recently undergone a massive name change? On Twitter, Mahal has changed his profile name, and while his Twitter handle remains @JinderMahal, he is now simply being known as the Maharaja. Whether this is just a change on Twitter or what Mahal will go by on WWE TV from here on is unclear, but for years, he's been known as the modern-day Maharaja. Mahal is on something of a career resurgence right now, though thanks in part to Tony Khan, and we'll have to see what he's called when he challenges Seth Rollins next week on Raw. At AEW Revolution 2024, Sting will wrestle his last match, and it's fitting that such an important match will feature one of the greatest commentators to ever don a headset. On the latest Grilling JR podcast, Jim Ross revealed that he'll be joining Revolution's commentary team for Sting's last match, as AEW hopes to give the icon an appropriate send-off. At Wrestle Kingdom, Tama Tonga captured the Never Openweight Championship, but would quickly state that he would be finishing with the company that same month. Ahead of his defense with Evil on January 20th, the challenger has been claiming that New Japan has already fired Tonga, and recently pointed out that he was listed on New Japan's site as the champ. This led to confusion by fans, and Tonga himself was also perplexed as to why Evil was listed as a champ before they even faced off, and it turns out this wasn't a simple error from an employee. According to New Japan, Tonga's profile was wrongly removed and Evil was inaccurately listed as the champion thanks to Evil invading the company's offices. They explained, "NJPW has come to learn that these alterations were made by staff members under extreme duress at the command of Evil. After reviewing video evidence, these alterations have been amended. We apologize to fans, and particularly to Tama Tonga for the confusion and distress caused." A video shared by New Japan would confirm that Evil had threatened staff to change the profiles to the way he wanted in a unique way to build towards next week's match at NJPW New Beginning. With Tonga leaving New Japan, this could indeed be his last match, making a title change likely, but as far as Evil is concerned, he's already the Never Openweight Champion. Back when he was in NXT, Top Dolla had an interaction with Adam Cole that wouldn't lead to a lengthy feud, but Dolla isn't opposed to working with Cole one day. On the Oh You Didn't Know podcast, Top Dolla, now AJ Francis, was asked about whether he'd consider facing Cole in AEW and said, "Send a contract, send a flight, send a contract, send a flight, and I'll be there tomorrow night." We don't know if AJ Francis will join AEW, but he is set for appearances in GCW and TNA, so the ex-superstar is making the most of his post-WWE run. Recently, talks between WWE and Mercedes Mone broke down as the two sides were apart when it came to money, but the former Sasha Banks hasn't entirely left WWE behind. For years, Mone was both a rival and ally to Bayley, as the pair are real-life good friends, and the former women's tag team champions recently reunited on the red carpet. The pair walked the red carpet at the premiere of the upcoming Hulu film Reliance, which features a star-studded cast, including Andy Samberg, Anna Kendrick, and Christopher Lloyd. The film will release later today, and judging by the photos, it's clear that Bayley and Mone are still as tight as it gets, despite all that's happened over the last few years. And we're ending today with The Rock, who recently returned and teased going for Roman Reigns, leaving many to believe he'll be challenging at WrestleMania instead of Cody Rhodes. We can't say for certain what WWE's plans are, but on social media this week, The Rock shared some backstage footage from Raw, showing his interaction with various superstars. Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax, and Becky Lynch all interacted with The Rock, as did Cody, as the pair shared a heartwarming embrace backstage at Raw. Whatever comes next, The Rock and Cody Rhodes seem cool with one another, and it'll be interesting who steps in the ring with Reigns on the grandest stage of them all.